Hi, how are you? This is the video on run-ons. So it starts on page 343. So run-ons are kind of like the opposite of fragments. Fragments is when you're missing something, and run-ons is when you do too much. So they're two sentences or more than two sentences joined together incorrectly. So joined incorrectly. Now, what run-ons are is when there's no punctuation or signal words such as dependent words or subordinate, which are subordinators, or coordinating conjunctions, which we'll talk about, um, are separating two independent clauses. Okay. Now here we have an and in between two separate clauses, and that's fine. But when we have two independent clauses together, sometimes there's no punctuation, and this is incorrect. This is called a run-on. Or there's a comma, and this is called a comma splice. Okay, so this is called a fuse sentence, and this is called a comma splice. Okay, they're errors, big errors, and you want to make sure that you fix that in your writing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to read Naomi. This is Naomi, I think, or not. This girl wrote on Naomi. She's applying for a special program for returning students at Cambridge College. And this is the answer to one of her essay questions. So I actually have that on your handout. And what we're going to do is, as I read, now that you know what a run-on is, so remember, it's two independent clauses joined without the proper punctuation or with incorrect punctuation. Let's take a look. So we know what an independent clause is. An independent clause is any clause that has a subject, verb, and a complete idea, right? And it's okay to have introductory phrases, right? But it's not okay to run into subject, verb, complete idea, subject, verb, complete idea. Okay, so let's read Naomi's letter, and let's see, as I'm reading, if you can find the nouns. Okay. For many years, I did not take control of my life. I just drifted without any goals. I realized one day as I met with my daughter's guidance counselor, I hoped my daughter would not turn out like me. From that moment, I decided to do something to help myself and others. I set a goal of becoming a teacher. To begin on that path, I took a math course at night. Then I took another in science. I passed both courses with hard work. Now I can do well in the Cambridge College program. I am committed to the professional goal that I finally found has given new purpose to my whole life. All right, do you think you found those run-ons? You can pause the video or look to your handout and see if you can do it on your own. All right, so we have this run-on here because we have this introductory phrase, which is fine. Then we have our subject I, and then we have our verb did not, and then we have the complete idea. For many years, I did not control my life. But then we have another subject, another verb, and another complete idea. I just drifted without any goals. So this is a comma splice. It's just combining two sentences with a comma, but a comma is not strong enough to join two independent clauses. Okay, this is fine. This is also fine. That's fine. So we have a subject, verb, complete idea. Here we have an introductory phrase. That's fine. To be in that path, I took a math course at night school, but here's a problem. Many people don't know that this is a problem, but this word then is a dependent word, and it's also sorry, it's not a dependent word. It's a conjunction. I'm sorry. It's a transition word and is also called a conjunctive adverb. And it's not a subordinate. It's not a fanboy. Fanboys, which we'll learn about, which are called coordinating conjunctions, and fanboys is the acronym to remember them. They can come in between two independent clauses. But this word then cannot come between two independent clauses. And it actually causes a lot of run-ons. Okay, see it says, I took a math course at night school. That should have a period or it could say and then, that would have been okay. Because and is a coordinating conjunction. Took another course in science. I passed both courses with hard work. I know I could do well in Cambridge College. Here again, we have a subject and a verb and complete idea. And we have subject, verb, and complete idea. Here again, though, we have another. And these ones you see are comma splices. So comma splice, comma splice, comma splice. But this one is the fuse sentence. I'm committed to the professional goal I finally found it has given my new purpose to my whole life. Okay. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. That's not the end of the sentence. Let me read that again. I am committed to the professional goal I finally found. Oh, that is it. That's the end of the idea. Sorry. Hard to read. What's the new sentence? We always want to say, what's the new subject? And the new subject there is it, right? I finally found it has given my new purpose to my whole life. So that's how we know where that sentence, the new sentence begins, the new clause, independent clause begins at the new subject, which is here. Okay, so that's a fuse sentence. All right, that's all you have to do with man's writing. That's a nice example of how you can revise your own writing. Okay, so how do we correct these run-ons? Okay, so there's 5 different ways. You can add a period. Okay, that's the easy way. You see that you have a run-on. I saw the man, he was running home. See, we have a subject, a verb, and a complete idea. Here we see we have a subject, verb, and complete idea. Put a period. That's fine. Add a semicolon. So a semicolon is strong enough to go in between 2 independent clauses. However, we should only use a semicolon without a conjunctive adverb if you're really trying to connect 2 sentences that are really connected and you're kind of making a statement, like these 2 sentences go together. I would caution against using this construction too much. It's usually when you're making a point. Here, I saw the man, he was running home. But you're so excited about he was running home, you don't have time for conjunctive adverb. Okay, but the idea is that you're giving emphasis to this. Next way is add a semicolon, conjunctive adverb, and a comma. So I'll give you a list of conjunctive adverbs and explain what they are. I saw the man, semicolon, however, comma, he was running home. I could add a comma and a coordinating conjunction. We'll talk about coordinating conjunctions. I saw the man, but he was running home. This needs a comma. This needs a coordinating conjunction. Or add a dependent word. When I saw the man, he was running home. Because then that makes this a dependent clause. And then it works with the dependent clause plus the independent clause are okay. So let's talk about this. When you have a subject, verb, and complete idea, put a period. It's an independent clause. Same thing. So here's an example of a fused sentence that's been corrected. This fused sentence is, I interviewed a candidate for a job. She gave me the dead fish handshake. Oh, we see here, I is a subject, interviewed as a subject, and we have a complete idea. And then we have she as a subject and gave as a subject. and then we have a complete idea. So here we see how to fix it. Just put a period and a capital S. Okay. Here's one with a comma. I don't see a comma splice because it doesn't have a comma there. You can't see it. But this looks like a few sentences to me. The dead fish is a limp handshake. The person plops her hand into yours. Okay, so here we see I think the comma is not showing up in my copy, or it's just a few sentences, but you can see that dead fish is a limp handshake. This is the subject, this is the verb, and this is a complete idea. The person plops her hand into yours. And then we see that the sentence is going to start here because our subject is here. We just have an article that's goes with this that modifies this subject. A verb and complete idea. All right. So use a semicolon only when the two sentences express closely related ideas, and the word on each side of the semicolon can stand alone as a complete sentence. Okay. So for example, here's a sentence that's fused with no punctuation. Slouching creates a terrible impression. It makes a person seem uninterested, bored, or lacking in self-confidence. If we add that semicolon there, it's fine. We see that this is a subject, verb, and complete idea. Subject, verb, and complete idea. Okay. Here's another, so there it gets a comma better. But it says, here's a comma splice. It is important in an interview to hold your head up, comma. It's just as important to sit up straight. The thing is here's our subject. It is important. And what's that? What that mean? That complete idea. It is the subject. Is the verb. Complete idea. And then it is the subject. And is a verb with a complete idea. So you can put a comma. These are nicely closely related sentences, right? All right. So it makes sense. They're kind of emphasizing it, right? Now, this is a great way in academic writing to write varied sentences. So conjunctive adverbs, you might have heard they're also known as like transition words. They're really nice because they connect two sentences in a very nice way. They do mean different things, so if you don't know the meaning of these, please look them up. But this is a really great way to add sentence variety to your essays. So the common conjunctive adverbs that you'll see most commonly are consequently, finally, furthermore, however, indeed, instead, likewise, meanwhile, moreover, nonetheless, otherwise, similarly, still, then, and therefore. Now, these all indicate certain relationships with the independent clauses, right? Consequently means there was this resulted in a consequence. Finally means it's at the end. So look up these, however, shows a contrast. So moreover is just an addition. Um, so even then is a conjunctive adverb, right? It's a signal word. All right. So if you don't understand the meaning of all those, you should look them up because they do have specific meanings that you can use to connect your two independent clauses in a very thoughtful and efficient way. Here's our example. I stopped by the market, however, it was closed. Contrast. Sharon is a neighbor. Moreover, she is my friend. Addition. Okay. So each of those do a certain thing. So look them up if you don't know them. Okay. All right. Here is a very nice summary of how to fixing and writing and fixing run-ons, adding a period or semicolon. So first find it. So we see that this is our run-on. You see we have the subject here, the verb, but then again we have a new subject and a new verb. So we see that this is a fused sentence, okay? So you can just put a period, put a semicolon, or you could put a conjunctive adverb, okay? But as is, it's incorrect. And here you see they use the conjunctive adverb, indeed. So I'll read it to you. Few people know the history of many popular Valentines. Indeed, Valentine's is one of these holidays. So it's a semicolon, conjunctive adverb, and a comma. Okay, so you're going to do practice 2. We'll go ahead and go over it. So I changed let's just look at hold on, let me go to let me go here because I wrote the instructions a little differently because it doesn't really work. It's in the book. So it's for each of the following items, indicate in a space to here, right? Whether it's a fused sentence or a comma splice. So all of these are wrong. Okay, all of these are run-ons. A fused sentence just means no comma. And a comma splice means there's a comma where a period or other or a comma plus a conjunctive adverb or a semicolon should go. So then correct the error by adding a period or a semicolon. Okay, so this one they just wanted to do period or semicolon. Later, you can add conjunctive adverbs. If you're feeling very ambitious, feel free to add a conjunctive adverb. All right, so here's our example. Being a farmer can mean dealing with all types of challenges. One of the biggest comes from the sky. So my trusty grammar already told me that's the fused sentence right there, okay? So I wrote FS because it is a fused sentence. We see that being a farmer is the subject, can mean is the verb, and then our complete idea. And then we have a new subject. One comes from the sky, right? So one plus the verb plus the complete idea. So all we have to say is it's a fused sentence. I put a semicolon, that's it. So I just want to warn you that if you do put something there, make sure you put a period. If you do put a period instead of semicolon, capitalize the beginning letter. Okay. Okay, so that's for you to finish on your own. Moving on. So coordinating conjunctions are really important and they're very special. These are the only words that can combine two independent clauses with a comma. So it's fanboys is an acronym to remember them. It's for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. That says fanboys. You see that FANOYS. Now it's actually kind of less than that because we never use nor. We rarely use or. And we rarely ever use for. They all mean different things. For means as a result of. Nor means a negative, like, I'll explain it. And yeah, so for we don't really use, or we don't really use. Or is just two different choices, right? So that one's kind of special. So the ones that we really use the most is and, but, yet, or so. So really it's and anyways? No, a and any's. Okay, any's. um, so they're the only words that can connect two independent clauses with a comma. So here we have subject, verb, independent clause, complete idea, plus the coordinating conjunction, plus another independent clause, subject, verb, complete idea. All right. Again, we have these few sentences. Nikisha was qualified for the job. She hurt her chances by mumbling. It's a contrast, so we use the word but. Some people ask me what's the difference between but and yet. Really, there's not much difference, and I'd say they're fine. So here you could say yet. I like yet better because but is another part of the human body that's not so flattering. So I kind of like using yet, but that's just my opinion. I mean, probably a little silly, but it doesn't. It's much more common in verbal communication use but, right? Um, and it basically means the same thing as yet. That's all. There's really no difference. Not really. And this one has a comma splice. The candidate smiled and she waved to the crowd. So and is addition. Okay. So remember, and is addition, but is a contrast, yet is a contrast, so is a as a result. Okay. as a result. I like the beach, so I moved there. Okay. Um, again, nor is a negative choice, and or is a choice of two things. We can go to the beach, comma, or we can go to the mountains. All right. Be careful. Don't use a subordinating word plus a coordinating conjunction. Um, so, for example, they say, although we warned Mimi to wear a seatbelt, but she never did. That doesn't make sense. You don't need to. It doesn't work that way. So instead, we warned Mimi to wear a seatbelt, but she never did. Okay, so you can't use a subordinator and a coordinating conjunction like that. All right, so here's the very nice chart of how you find and fix your run-ons. So first find your run-ons. Oh, okay, let me check my paper. Okay, here's a subject, here's a verb. Okay, so a complete thought. And here's a subject, here's a verb. Oh, I have a fused sentence here. Okay, so all you have to do is add a coordinating conjunction there. In this case, foods differ from place to place. Your favorite treat might discuss someone else from another culture. This is an addition, so use the word and. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the handout again. So be careful, just make sure you remember that you're using coordinating conjunctions here. So you're using a fanboy. Don't use anything else except for a fanboy. I'm going to add that here. Fanboys only. Okay. And so it's for, and, nor, but, or, yet, or so. Okay. In this case, I think they do have you try to use for. So just be, mindful of that because for is going to be as a result, right? Um, so if you see that there's a connection where it's as a result, then use for, but it's kind of funny sounding, to be honest. Right. So make sure that sometimes every once in a while, a student will just get this wrong and just correct it any way they want. Please don't correct it any way you want. For this one, please only use a coordinating conjunction. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, or so. Let's see the example. Let's do a couple. So the example is, most Americans do not like the idea of eating certain kinds of food. Most Americans would probably reject horse meat. Okay, so I see a subject and a verb and a complete idea, and I see a subject and a verb and a complete idea. Here's where it messes up. It's a comma splice. All I have to do is add a word that connects these logically together. I chose so because it's as a result, right? So means as a result. Yet is a contrast, or is a choice, but is a contrast, nor is a negative choice, and is addition, and for is also as a result. Usually goes in the beginning of the sentence. All right, so let's take a look. And it's just not used anymore. For I love my country. I don't know. Never mind. But let's see if they want to use it anywhere. All right. In most cultures, popular foods depend on availability. And tradition people tend to eat old familiar favorites. Okay, so my trusty Grammarly is already telling me we have a subject, foods, we have a verb, and we have a complete idea. Popular foods depend on availability and tradition. Oh, okay. But then we have a new subject here. People tend to eat old familiar favorites. So what do we have to do? We have to add a fanboy. Which fan? So we have to add a comma, add the fanboy, right? And so what relationships do these have? So people tend to eat their own favorites? Yeah, could be it. Because as a result, yeah, that works. And always works. So it's just an addition. And people tend to eat their old familiar favorites. Yeah, yeah. It's either so or and. Both work. I'm just gonna put whatever you like. Okay, so that one's finished. Okay, so you have to go through those sentences. You just highlight there, save it for you. Do whatever you want. You can do so if you want. You just have to see what is the relationship between these two things. Is it contrasting? Is it addition? Is it as a result? Is it a negative choice? Or is it a positive choice? Okay. Once you know that relationship, you can add the panic boy. Okay. Keep going. Almost finished. So dependent words, you learn about dependent words in the fragments video. You could add a dependent word to make one part of it a dependent clause, okay? And that's fine because you can have an independent clause plus a dependent clause, all right? And this whole thing becomes a dependent clause because the dependent word is part of the dependent clause. So you have subject, verb, dependent word, and then you have subject, verb, okay? And these are fine. So you can add these dependent words to combine those two sentences. So if we take a look here, we can also take two sentences and make it one. So Halloween was originally Halloween was originally a religious holiday. People worship the saints. I don't really think that's true, but that's fine. Halloween was originally a religious holiday when people worship the saints. See how we did that? We also see that a common it needed when it's showing contrast. Many holidays have religious origins, though the celebrations have moved away from their religious roots. Okay? So we put a comma there. Here's another example. Your final statement should express your interest in the position. You do not want to sound desperate. So here we use the dependent word although. We found that this is where the confused sentence is because we have a new subject. Although is a good one to choose because it expresses the relationship between the logical relationship between the first sentence and the second sentence. Here we have a comma splice, so there's a comma there, but it's not strong enough because we see we have it is important to make an interview on a positive note. It is a subject, is a verb, it's a complete idea. That final impression is what the interview will remember. We have a new verb, new subject, a new verb. And so here is where it's comma splice, it's not good enough. And we could just use the word because. It's the logical relationship. It's a cause, right? So it's important in an interview because that impression is what the interview will remember. That's the logical relationship. Also, so if the dependent word becomes in the beginning, you put a comma here. So the dependent word plus the dependent clause in the beginning, you put a comma. And then you have the independent clause. But if it's the other way around, you don't need to put a comma. All right, so for example, when the interviewer stands, comma, the candidate should shake hands firmly. Saw that this was when the interview stands, it's not a complete idea. Right? So that's not a good, it's not, it's doesn't work. If the interview stands, the candidate should shake firm's hands firmly. It doesn't make sense. So basically, we just had to add the dependent word so the relationship between these two clauses would work. And here's a comma splice. After the interview is over, comma. Now we added the dependent word after. The candidate should stand and polite smile. Stand and smile. All right, we add that dependent word and it makes sense. Okay. First you have to find it. So here, in case it's a comma splice, we see we have a subject, a verb, a main idea. Complete idea, and a subject, verb, and a complete idea. Comma splice is here. Fix it. Find the appropriate dependent word that fits. Okay, so Alzheimer's disease is a heartbreaking illness because it causes steady decrease in brain capacity. Okay, so same thing with this one. This one is make sure you add a dependent word. Let's go back to our handout. So for this one, make sure you add a dependent word. You may want to refer back to the list of dependent words on page 351. Okay, here's our example. Fans like basketball's many rules and traditions. They sometimes forget about the actual history of the sport's main piece of equipment, the ball. So let's see where it fuses. Fans like baseball's many rules and traditions. A lot of time what you're going to see is you're going to see two nouns in a row, and then that's kind of a signal like what? It's not always a case for a run-on because there's that phrases, and sometimes you can delete the that it is a signal that to check out the K, why are the two nouns in a row? Wait a minute, this is a new subject, right? So here's where they did it. It's the problem right there, okay? Because here is also subject, verb, and complete idea. So to fix it, we added the dependent words only, although. Sounds like basketball's many rules and traditions, although they sometimes forget the actual history of the sport's main piece of equipment, blah, blah. And then you get to read about a basketball, right? So instructions are correct run-ons by adding a dependent word, okay, where it comes together. Comma splices are nice. Just take out that comma. No, you don't need it, remember. You do not need a comma if the dependent word comes in the middle. Okay, great. So that's what you have to do. And then the last one, I think this is the last one. Yes, last one is just doing all of those. Okay, so I don't need to tell you anything. Go over the first one with you, but let me see what else is book. That might be it. We need to go over. I do like their oh no, this is important. I don't have you practicing anything with this, but please remember this forever. Is that then is not a coordinating conjunction. Then is a conjunctive adverb. Then is not strong enough to add two independent clauses with a comma, and it makes a run-on sentence. So if you have then separated by a comma and two independent clauses, that is incorrect and was a run-on. So, and you could fix it in all the different ways. So this is our comma splice. I picked up my laundry, then I went home. Because this is an independent clause and this is an independent clause, and this word then is not strong enough to go into in between two independent clauses with only a comma. So you could either just put a period, you could put a semicolon, you could add and, which is a coordinating conjunction, or you can change it and take out and put a dependent word. I'm sorry, not and put a dependent word. Okay, so please remember this. If because it's a big problem and many people make this mistake, but then cannot separate, not go in between two independent clauses with a comma. It is not a coordinating conjunction, it's a conjunctive adverb. And that's it. You get to edit it. Let's go ahead and go to the I'm really glad I went back to the to the book because that is a very common error. Okay, so you're going to edit all the different types of run-ons. So in the following items, correct any run-ons. Use each method of correcting errors, please. So try to use each error. Add a period, use a semicolon. Because if you just add a period, that's not showing me that you understand everything we did. Just do one adding of a semicolon, okay? Adding a semicolon, a conjunctive adverb, adding a comma and a coordinating conjunction, and adding a dependent word. So do all of these at least once. Try to only do one with a semicolon, okay? And fix all those run-ons. Let's go ahead and go to the example. So remember, I want you to rewrite it underneath, please, just like this. So the example is, most people expect to be crammed in an airplane seat. More spacious seating is on the way. So let's take a look. Where does it break up? All right, I have a subject and I have a verb, and then I have a complete idea. So what does a complete idea end? Most people expect to be crammed in an airplane seat more. Okay, so I see that this is the end of that complete idea. And so that's where it fuses, right? Um, more spacious seating is on the way. So what's the relationship between here? It's a contrast. So I chose to use the coordinating conjunction but, okay, because it's a contrast. You could have also wrote and. It's another coordinating conjunction, and always works. You could also have written semicolon and therefore. Therefore, more seatings. Yeah, because that's a good relationship. Or just a semicolon, which I love. Okay, so there's more than one way to fix it. All right, and that's what you have to do for the rest of the assignment. Thank you. Bye.